Hey, good morning. Thank you for joining me for episode 10. I hope everyone had a nice weekend, and I'm excited to get started on today's videos. Let's jump right in.
Hey, it's Glamham. You won't believe what I am going to show you. This is today's Blob forecast, according to ventusky.com. Remember, they have said this is a glitch and that it was fixed, but it keeps happening. Now, what we're looking at is from May the 7th to May the 13th. But here's the thing. This is a different pattern than we saw yesterday. So wait for it. So look. This is what the Blob was doing if you looked yesterday. So not only have they not cleared it up, but it's completely different. Let's side by side these. So again, on the left is what yesterday's forecast of the Blob was, and on the right is how it's changed today. So what is going on? We're not even getting a consistent glitch. On top of all, we've had a 3.6 magnitude earthquake in South Africa. If this interests you, check out my prior video, The Blob is Back. I've had some new thoughts which I'll be presenting soon. In the meantime, stay tuned for updates on The Blob.
So there is definitely something to this blob. Now this video is from May. However, this blob has continued to show up on tracking almost every day, even today. We saw it first in April, then it returned in May, then June, and now in July we still see that blob. That's quite a long time. Now we know it's originating from Bouvet Island, where there was a deep earthquake. When I say deep, I believe it was something like 10,000 meters or so is what they were saying. Following the appearance of this blob, Africa has been hit with major weather events, including snow and tornadoes, which are almost unheard of in those parts of Africa. We also see the water is heating up, and we see hurricane season kicking off with a big bang with Hurricane Beryl. Now it looks like Hurricane Beryl's path also follows the path that this blob is taking, and it makes me think that it might be indeed weather modifying technology. I would even say weather warfare. I think at this point it's a foregone conclusion. We know that there is a facility on Bouvet Island for quote-unquote weather testing. We know for sure that there is an audio frequency coming from Bouvet Island that has been registering up to 80-foot waves. Now there weren't actually any 80-foot waves that anyone could detect or see with the eyes, but all of the systems and all of the software are registering that kind of force coming off of this frequency. We see ocean life going haywire as a result, which is not uncommon. Sonar and other underwater frequencies often have a negative effect on aquatic life. In the ocean surrounding the blob, we've been seeing an antenna pattern. It's parallel lines intersected by a perfectly straight line that run for miles throughout the ocean. This is another indication of sonar mapping or submarines or underwater activity. Originally, they said that this blob was a glitch. However, it returned. Then the company said that they're going to go ahead and just shut down the program that people were using to track it because it had some problems. So people moved to other satellite tracking programs, and wouldn't you know it, the blob continues to be seen. It's not just that one program, and I would say it's absolutely not a glitch. Well, that program's since returned, and so has the blob. So this has been an ongoing event since April, and it makes me wonder what kind of long-term effects it's going to have on weather, on aquatic life, and the ocean in general. I find it to be very concerning. Weather manipulation technology first came about from Nikola Tesla when he invented his Wardenclyffe Tower. Now his Wardenclyffe Tower would manipulate the ionosphere by essentially spanking a lightning bolt with more electricity. If you imagine a lightning bolt going in a circle around the Earth constantly, every time it comes back to its point above the Wardenclyffe Tower, it would get spanked with electricity and sent faster and faster and faster around the globe. This is how Tesla discovered essentially free energy. He could plug light bulbs into a hillside, they would turn on. He also realized that through manipulating the ionosphere, one could also manipulate weather or potentially earth effects, like manipulating a fault line, causing earthquakes, tsunamis. This tech ended up being purchased by JP Morgan, and from there it was dismantled, and we never heard from it again. A lot of people suspect that this tech was then used in establishing the HARP program. HARP uses radio waves to manipulate the ionosphere, and when they do, it causes an aurora borealis effect. That's strange. I think we just saw one of those aurora borealis effects shortly after the eclipse, didn't we? It was a very interesting one. It also happened to take place at the reactivation of HARP. Coincidence? No such thing. I think our government, or a combination of world governments, are indeed using Tesla tech to manipulate our oceans and our weather. I think they're doing this to force a climate change agenda, depopulation, or to just further cement their power and control over us. What do you guys think, though? Is this blob weather manipulation? Is it some kind of deep sea monster? I've heard loads of speculation that the dragon has been unleashed or Leviathan is roaming the waters again. Let me know in the comments.
Well, have you heard the theory? It goes back to Tartaria, that the Great Wall of China, it's actually facing
the wrong way.
the holes that they would shoot arrows out of is facing towards China.
Yeah.
No way.
So
Yeah.
it's suspected that it could have possibly been Tartaria.
That's super strange. Speaking of the wall being built by someone else possibly, want to talk about the Chicago World Fair?
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're
that's
saying
the
the
same thing.
influence was Tartarian architecture.
Have you seen the pictures?
It looked like ancient Rome. They
Chicago's
said that they
World
built
Fair.
it for the World Fair, but then after they just tore it all down. And it's like, that doesn't sound right.
It reminds me of that whole conspiracy theory that we just skipped all those years. They rewrote the year of history that it was, and so we actually are living in right now the
1500s or
we're now,
something,
yeah.
right?
Now would be difficult because of the digital footprint that we have.
Yeah.
But it's like, it would be so easy just to convince people, yeah, this just didn't happen.
It's that whole Mandela effect thing.
The thing is, it's confirmed. Like, it literally existed. Like, and so it's just,
Yeah.
why get rid of something like that?
I really love these guys, but they do like to claim a lot of speculation as fact when it's not. Tartaria is not confirmed, although I do think there's a very good chance that it did exist. I think it's safe to say that there were advanced civilizations, maybe not advanced in the way that we are today, but more advanced than what we understand humans to be like at the time. There does seem to be a lot missing in history. And I am convinced that there is more to the Americas than us being settled by some colonials, or that the land was only populated by roaming tribes of natives. I'm starting to really think that maybe there was something before all that here in the US, possibly even a precursor to ancient Egyptian society. Could it have been Tartaria? If we're looking at the maps, it seems like Tartaria would have most likely been over more towards Russia, possibly even near the Great Wall. And on the topic of the Great Wall, it is very interesting that all of the turrets for the guards point inward towards China, not outward towards the Mongols they were supposedly defending against. Similar to the pyramids, it makes me wonder if the Great Wall was already there, and like the Egyptians claimed credit for the pyramids, maybe China claimed credit for the Great Wall. Now that is just a speculation, but certainly is an interesting one. When it comes to the World Fair, they frequently will make essentially chicken wire buildings, plaster, chicken wire, plywood, very lightweight, same kind of stuff you'd see on a Hollywood set. But I do think that the World Fair could have been used to show ancient technology in a modern way. But I don't think that the World Fair was necessarily covering up or using Tartarian structures or anything like that. I think instead they were trying to mimic ancient Rome. I do think that there is something to the World Fair, however, in that right around the time of the World Fair, 1900 or so, we had all of those fires. 1850 to 1900, every single major city burnt down. And it does make me speculate that perhaps they were destroying evidence that they just inhabited buildings instead of actually building them on themselves. And if you have the entire world coming to the US for a fair, you don't want to get that kind of bad press, so it's possible that they might have just cleaned the slate prior to the World Fair. But I'm not really sure on that one. I think it is a great rabbit hole, and I'll certainly continue to explore Tartaria. As far as mainstream scholars go, they completely dismiss the idea of Tartaria. However, the more mainstream dismisses something, the more I'm inclined to take a second look at it, because as we know, the Smithsonian and their like have been basically lying to us about everything relating to the origins of humanity, especially when it comes to ancient civilizations, ancient Egypt, or giants. Just want to pause for a moment and remind you guys to please hit the like, subscribe, and share button if you're enjoying what you're seeing. Every bit of engagement will help this brand new channel grow, and I certainly appreciate you. Let's get back to it.
You really got to see this, guys. You will not believe this. Remember the solar eclipse way back in April 2024? And you know Hurricane Beryl? Well, it seems as if Hurricane Beryl is going down the same path as the 2024 solar eclipse. Now, maybe this could be all one big coincidence, but the very area where the eclipse intersected with past eclipses that happened in the same area, this is where Beryl is heading. So you tell me, is this all just one big coincidence? Or is this a sign of things to come? 2024 is definitely one to remember, and things continue to become more and more strange by the day. And I guess that you can just add this to the list of weird and strange things happening. Do you think this is just a coincidence? Or do you think there is more to this?
The people who run the world are true believers in the occult, and it's no surprise that we would see a hurricane that people suspect might be man-made following a path that would line up with occult symbolism or rituals. And as we know, the eclipse, any eclipse, is a very powerful occult item. I think Hurricane Beryl came from Bouvet Island. I absolutely believe our government has the ability to manipulate weather. As we previously discussed, they stole this tech from Tesla. We're not the only country who has this ability. Dubai has been doing cloud seeding and weather modification to generate more rain, and wouldn't you know it, now they're flooding. But other countries also have similar models to the Wardenclyffe Tower that Tesla created, or to our version of the HARP platform. HARP was supposed to have been shut down years ago, but they ended up actually relocating it to an offshore platform run by the Pentagon. This happened during the government shutdown that took place, I want to say maybe 10 years ago at this point. I'd have to double check that. But while the government was shut down, at the same time, HARP was announced to be closed and a new testing platform was opened by the Pentagon, where they basically spent all of the money that we didn't have since the government was shut down at that point. I'm glad to see it looks like Beryl's slowed down a little bit. It seemed like it was going to be coming in as a Cat 5, and it looks like they're calling it a Cat 1 now, which is great. I would still take it seriously, and it looks like it's already expected to make landfall this morning, so we'll see how that goes. But I do think that Beryl was man-made. I think it originated from Bouvet Island. I think we can see enough proof of that just by tracking the hurricane's pathway, as well as the dates. If we look at the Bouvet Island maps, we can see a pulsing wave coming off of that point, which is where the blob is right over top of it, and it goes directly towards the path of Hurricane Beryl. So I'm suspicious, and I'm hesitant to believe in coincidence anymore. So I'm going to go ahead and say weather manipulation.
Here is a picture straight from the Library of Congress presented as a historical photo of New York City. And this is where we get into the so-called vanilla skies. This is classified as a negative, a glass plate negative, which means that this photo was taken straight from the camera, and that's how it was. At first glance of this photo, obviously this thing down here looks a little weird, but everything else seems normal. Right here, when we zoom in, this is a painted car.
Yeah, I know
What
it.
the
That's like a cartoon drawing.
And over here, we got people that are blatantly like painted in, right? Like this is painted. You know what I mean?
Those are paint strokes. There's like no denying that.
Now look at this. When we get up here, this is all painted here. This is a building here in the original photo, right? This is all painted in. So people are saying, like, what are they actually trying to hide by painting over these things? Because this right here, like this from here up is all like, you know, fake, except for these right here. These are real buildings, you could tell. But what was here that they needed to paint and cover? Even in the Library of Congress, it doesn't say that, hey, it's a retouched photo. It's presented as a glass plate negative.
Although I did go to college for photography and film editing, I'll admit I don't have an extensive background in old photography such as this. I do understand that it was a very common practice to paint over photos, sometimes even the negatives. This was a way to fix mistakes, overexposure. It's a way to correct issues such as a cracked glass plate on the negative. However, in this case, I think that this guy's onto something here. A lot of these photos that I've seen on this channel and similar TikToks, they do show over manipulation. Entire scenes painted in. Now, paintbrush strokes on a negative, not an uncommon thing. Again, almost every negative was actually painted on in some way or another. However, what we're noticing on some of these photos is the entire sky has been completely whited out. And I don't just mean overexposure, I mean completely whited out, and then they attempted to draw fake clouds back in. Entire scenes of traffic and people walking the streets that are completely fabricated. And this is shown in the Library of Congress just as a glass negative, he said. They did not remark that it was a modified or edited image. I am a fan of a government cover-up, and I think our government is covering up more than they aren't these days. In fact, I'd argue the truth is alien to our government and world elites. I do think in this case, it's most likely that we're just looking at glass negatives that had some touch-up work done on them. However, it is also possible that they could be trying to hide something they don't want us to see. Could it be something in the background? Perhaps airships or energy towers? Who knows? I am curious. I'm going to have to check the dates on these. I would love to see if these photos were taken before or after the Great Fire of every single city that took place in the 1850s. But what do you guys think? Are these just touched up glass plate negatives, or is our government, as usual, trying to cover up some kind of truth that they want to keep hidden from us? Let me know in the comments.
Somebody stole Durandal. Somebody was really out here playing King Arthur. And they took a sword that's been embedded in stone for 1,300 years. If you don't know about this sword, it is France's sword in the stone. It is their Excalibur. It's a sword of legend, and it's said to have belonged to Charlemagne. The sword also appears in multiple epic poems featuring Roland. Here is a depiction of Roland with Durandal. It is stated that he threw the sword with such force that it embedded itself into the stone. Hey thief, like, what are you gonna do now? What are you gonna do now? Did you become king? Did Merlin show up?
What the hell? Somebody stole the French Excalibur. This is not an easy thing to do. This sword was wedged into a sheer 100-foot vertical cliff face for 1,300 years with a very heavy chain wrapped around the handle, bolted to the side to make sure that it didn't go anywhere. Now, she's incorrect when she says the sword belonged to Charlemagne. It actually belonged to his nephew, Roland. It is said that it was gifted to him by an archangel, and that the handle of the sword was made using the cloak wrap from Mary Magdalene, and the pommel included the teeth of St. Peter. This is said to be a legendary magical artifact capable of even defeating demons outright. So this sword is said to be one of the most magical swords in human history, perhaps even more so than Excalibur. Roland used it during his final battle, and before his death, he was afraid it would fall into enemy hands, so he tried to snap it. When that failed, he threw it as hard as he could at the cliff wall. It hit the wall so hard that it split the wall in two, causing a crevice that became its scabbard for the next 1,300 years. For someone to have stolen this sword without a trace, that gives me goosebumps. It makes me wonder, did King Arthur come back? Or does France have a new king getting ready to pop out? Or is it possible that an angel came to reclaim the sword for some other need? Maybe they needed it to fight, I don't know, Leviathan? What do you guys think? Durandal has been stolen. Who did it? Why? Alright, and I think on that note, we'll go ahead and close today's video. As always, please remember, if you like what you see, subscribe, share, and hit that like button. As a new channel, all of your engagement helps. I'm going to go ahead and leave you today on the topic of swords with a short clip of my own sword fighting, because frankly I think it's pretty cool. But I'll see you next time. Thanks for joining.